Hello, welcome to Tea with a Druid. It's morning tea for me. I'm in the Blue Mountains near Sydney in Australia, and it's really nice to be here. I really wanted to talk about all the different places that we come from today. Hi, Adie, how you doing? And it would be great to hear where you're from and to get an idea of where everybody's coming from. I can see some people turning up now. That's awesome. Hello. That's great. I hope you've all got your tea too, or who knows, maybe it's a coffee. It's a real pleasure to be here. I wanted to talk today about what I do a little bit, introduce myself a bit, and then also share with you some ideas and things that we've been working with in Australia that have been helping us to connect with the local land here, because we're in a very different landscape away from where Druidry comes from. So, going to New Zealand recently, we saw how they do that as well, and that was really interesting. So, yeah, thinking about kind of global Druidry a little bit today, I thought would be good fun. So I can see we've got people coming in from England and New Zealand and Germany and the Netherlands and some friends from Australia there too. So that's great. So we are already a global audience, or a global circle standing in the grove. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I started Druidry in 2007. I decided to go and live in England for a little while because I really wanted to see what the Wheel of the Year felt like in the land that it was created in, and to see why certain symbols of the season were related to different festivals, and what it felt like in the land when they became the sacred symbol of that time of year. So yeah, and I went thinking of myself as general pagan or a green witch or something like that, and I'd never even heard of Druidry. But then I found it. I was living in Glastonbury and made some friends there, and the circle that I went to was called the Gorseth of Kaya Iberi, which is in Avebury, and I learned a lot from them. It was great. And I'm just seeing more people come in. That's awesome. Yeah, so I learned a lot when I was there, and I decided to bring that back to Australia and sort of use the theory that I found there to play with the idea of making an Australian Wheel of the Year. Not because I wanted to, you know, kick out the old Wheel of the Year, but sort of to add a layer of what the native cycles were doing and what is happening around me and the places that I live. And at that time I was living in the northern beaches of Sydney, which is, it's, you know, it's coastal, it's by the beach. There's, but it's really not the kind of climate where the traditional OM trees, for example, will grow easily. And finding, you know, so those seasonal markers were quite difficult. The things that you would want to put on your altar, sometimes it would mean a long drive to try and find something like that. So yeah, but the Wheel of the Year that I created there was very much about my relationship with the bush, but also with the ocean, and with the different winds that happen at different times of year. And it's been a fascinating journey learning how to sort of put together a Wheel of the Year and tell the story of a different place, but still using that same framework, I suppose, or the theory that is behind that idea of having a Wheel of the Year, and knowing that there's a story in nature to be told and to be found as well, I suppose. And I think that, like, even if you live in a place where the traditional Wheel of the Year is, you know, where that's native to you, you might also find that there are other things happening on a much more local level. Things like just even in your own garden, perhaps there are introduced species that you just love, or you know, there could be certain cycles that maybe even are slightly different to the traditional cycles, and just like knowing the intricacies of our local area can be really fascinating, and learning to like map that out can be really fun. I want to show you what my one for the coastal area looks like. Hopefully it's not upside down. So that's what I did. It goes anti-clockwise. I know Pamela was talking about her Wheel of Sagash as well, so we're the wheel creators down here in the southern hemisphere, I suppose. But yeah, there were things on there that I just felt needed to be in our Wheel of the Year. The fire in the midsummer, the bushfires, and how that's a real death and rebirth time, and when the bark all falls off the trees, that's a kind of letting go and like for new growth time, and the wattle in the middle of winter starts blooming at midwinter solstice, and that's, you know, these are little markers of the season that can't really be denied. So I really enjoyed doing that, and I wonder if all of the different places that we have around the world might have similar little local symbols of the season. I keep looking out the window because that's where the view of the forest is from my house. Now I live in a completely different place. I live, well, it's not that far really, but it's very different because we're at a much higher altitude. So I'm having to learn how to do a Wheel of the Year again. We've been here about 3.5 years, and it's been really interesting. But yeah, so this whole journey ended up having me end up creating this group called Druids Down Under. And it's not an OBOD group, it's a very open group. We have members from ADF and the British Druid Order, and people that are just working it out themselves through you know, reading books or talking to people. And you know, we all just have a mishmash of ideas, but what brings us in together is that shared experience of the Australian landscape. And you know, we also have members from New Zealand, and I think there's a couple from Brazil as well. So anybody that's interested in that idea of adaptation and basically just using Australia as a case study is part of our group. So we talk a lot about symbols in nature, but also our relationship with the local native cultures in the places that we live, and you know, all the ancestors of the land, and that's, yeah, really helpful in helping us to understand where we live a lot better, because I think